Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. Hopefully, you all can hear me tonight. The way Dr. Kane, my co host, is looking, I'm not sure. Dr. Kane, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just a little bit loud. I'm trying to turn it down.
Oh, I'm loud? Well, how's it going today, Dr. Kane, for you? It was a beautiful day here in Northeast Florida, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. It absolutely was a beautiful day, but it's about to change in maybe about an hour. uh, Not because it's night, but because we about to get a little bit of weather, a little rain and stuff. But still, rain is welcome when it's timely. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, and I'm always reminded that when we get 70s and 80 degree weather, 80 plus degree weather in November, then that's a reminder of climate change, right? Right, Dr. Judy. I'll call you Dr. Judy, but I'm just gonna call you Judy. Forget the Dr. Judy, right? I'm just gonna call you Judy. But I'm excited, Dr. Kane. We have a very distinguished panel joining us tonight. Last week, for our audience, we delved into the conversation about post election. How are people feeling about it? And we wanted to get others' opinions about it. Dr. Kane, and forgive me for not acknowledging before acknowledging our guests. Silly me, forgive me for not acknowledging our behind the scenes technology wizard, as he calls himself, Tyrone Jackson. How are you doing this evening, Tyrone?
I'm doing well, Miss Johnson. Thanks for acknowledging me.
I saw you over there pouting. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Let me stop. Let me
All
not go
kids,
any further. So anyway, as I was saying, last week we had a conversation, excuse me, with a group of African Americans outside of us to talk about post-election and how folks are feeling and who voted for whom and so on and so forth. And really, we want to have a conversation. The reason we brought this topic up is because we really want to get a perspective of what now for communities at large, regardless of party affiliation. What now since the election? So tonight we have a distinguished panel of I call them my friends here in Northeast Florida because I've known these folks for years. I'm not going to say too many years because then I'll age all of us, but we've done some great work here in Northeast Florida addressing the health outcomes of the Hispanic community. I am not going to attempt to tell you all about them because I would like to give each one of them an opportunity to introduce themselves as we delve into the topic of the road ahead, how the election shapes the future of the Hispanic community. So let's first start with introductions. And of course, I will always say ladies first. Judy?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see some of you. I haven't seen you in a while, and so it's fantastic to get together and have some interesting chats, which I'm sure they will be. So again, I'm Judy Rodriguez. I'm a retired professor from the University of North Florida, and my area of specialty has been especially community nutrition, but with a focus on underrepresented groups, um, the Latino population, the African American population, and a lot of the issues that surround them as it relates to health and education. So this election is one that's been very interesting, and I will say stressful for me because I think about this stuff way too much. So it's going to be a great discussion, I'm sure.
Thank you, Judy, and welcome. Mario, DeConto. How are you doing, Mario?
I am well. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on today with such a distinguished panel.
And tell our audience a little bit about yourself, Mario.
I am a licensed mental health counselor here in the state of Florida. I work for the Head Start program, and I've been working for Head Start, I guess, on and off since 2009. But I also do private practice counseling, and my main focus is also, on the side is just doing community activism, informing folks of what's going on. Um, and I'm also the president of the Democratic Hispanic Caucus.
Okay, thank you and welcome. And last but certainly not least, another friend I've been knowing for a long time, Victor Cora. How are you doing this evening? Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and welcome.
First of all, Johnson, thank you for the opportunity to sit in this panel with you. I am Victor Cora, and currently I'm working for the Mayo Clinic. I tell people I'm the town crier for everything brain health, healthy brain aging, dementia, and Alzheimer's. But again, in the Hispanic and African American community, as we're trying to get folks to empower themselves and start thinking about uh, aging gracefully and healthy. So, and then before that, I was producing a lot of events, doing a lot of outreach in our communities. That's how I got a chance and to be blessed to know Mario, to know Judith, and you, as we started the Hispanic Health Council many, many, many years back. So again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And thank you all. I always like to start and say thank you all for answering my text or phone call, whichever way I reached out to you first, because I'm good for doing that. Like, hey, what you doing? Would you like to be a guest on our podcast? So, and I usually sneak it in late at night so people will get a
I
chance
know.
to marinate on it overnight before they answer me the next day. So that's my strategy, just in case you're wondering, like, how come she waited so late to ask me? Because I don't want to hit you during the day when you're hot and fresh. I wanted you to be tired and like, oh no, not something else to do at night. But on a serious tip, I want to get started in the conversation and just really ask you from your personal perspectives, what were your initial reactions to the election results? And Mario, I'm going to start with you because you mentioned your affiliation in terms of being with the Democratic Caucus, Hispanic Democratic Caucus, but just personally, what were your initial reactions to the election results?
Well, I had a feeling that it was not going to turn out well. And unfortunately, I had too much of the same kind of feelings that I had when it was coming up with, like, as when Hillary was running. There's just a strong feeling of just disinterest for a lot of voters. There were some very, very excited voters that were all in, but I didn't get that feeling across the board. And where you can really kind of tell is with your uh, non-affiliated voters, not NPA voters, no party affiliate. Um, and that was concerning. But it wasn't for a lack of volunteers. We had plenty of people on the ground. We had a lot of outreach. We did see some nice numbers. But unfortunately there were 70,000 Democrats that did not vote in Jacksonville. Um, on a lighter side, I guess we did win the NPA voter for Jacksonville. We had 48,000 NPAs vote Democrat versus Trump getting 43,000. And we did see a nice turnout compared to the mayoral election. We had 82,000 votes for the mayoral. We had over 182,000 for the presidential election. So a lot of people came out, but we only lost really by 7,000 votes in Duval. So all in all, it wasn't that the efforts weren't there. You know, it really just boiled down to just small percentages. You know, I think 48.7 to 49%. Um, you know, just you know, I think it was just a lack overall, just nationally. You know, but in the state of Florida, um, Trump actually, compared to 2020, outdid himself, and he turned from gaining 300,000 votes in 2020 to getting 1.4 million votes. So the state of Florida was definitely a battleground that the Republicans can definitely plant their flag, and they didn't want 2020 numbers to happen again, and they definitely showed. But you know, where those efforts were missing, where those efforts were focused, they may have lost it in other states. Like for example, in North Carolina, we got the governor, the House, and the Senate for the state Senate for North Carolina. So a very conservative country, but it went blue. So you know, we just have to figure out what the formula was in these other states. You know, we know that Georgia has done well with Democratic movement there. Um, so we just have to see, you know, where the South, how to crack the South formula. But you know, with the percentages that we saw, you know, small percentages of wins really, when we're looking at the numbers overall. But you know, a win is a win, and you know, and a loss is a loss. So, but yeah, overall, you know, the Hispanic votes were down. You know, everyone was down. I think the numbers we saw, I think all I got was the women's vote. Um, but I think it was, let me check here. I think it was, yeah, 67% of Hispanic females did not vote.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
in Florida.
Wow. Is that
And
just in Duval, in Jacksonville or Duval County,
that's
Mario?
that was a Florida number.
Oh, okay.
So that's 500,000 plus women, you know, and
Wow.
women tend to vote more than males for Hispanics. So where does that, you know, I can only imagine where the male vote was. And the only reason I don't have the male vote is because I was getting this from a meeting of the women's group. But it was troubling, you know, to see our disinterest in that. However, we did see some nice numbers with our Puerto Rican population. Our Puerto Rican population definitely outdid the rest of the Hispanic population when it came to voting for Harris. Um, and that was nice to see, except for you know, except Florida. I think in all the major swing states, all but Florida went to Harris. So that was another you know, another win for the party. Um, however, you know, like I said, it's the total that cause that, you know, brings the win. But
Thank you. Thank you,
yeah, yeah.
Mario.
Sorry for going on and on, but
Well, that's okay. We'll get back into it. But Victor, I'd like for you and your when you talk about your initial reactions to the election results to mention, because I know you worked in this area. What's the percentage of the population of Hispanics here in Duval County? Do you remember those numbers?
We're sitting at about close to 13, 12 to 13%, about 130,000. And that's as of July of 2023. So those are the estimate numbers as we speak. New numbers will roll out now. Since we did the population estimate in July, and I say we because I still feel like I'm part of the census, but so the numbers are sitting at about 130,000, about 13%. So now, so that's where, you know, that's where we're at right now. So the numbers have grown, you know, over the last couple of, you know, decades that I've been here, from less than 1% now to 13%, which is a significant an impact in our community, Jocelyn.
Thank you for that. So, what were your initial reactions to the election results?
Um, you know, like Mario, I just, you know, had this kind of uneasy feeling you know, because I didn't feel the momentum. I didn't feel the move. I didn't feel the excitement. And I was kind of happy to see that we have some really, really good early voting numbers. Cause normally when you do that, it kind of leans to the Democratic side. But then as we got close to election day, and on election day, those record breaking numbers, normally the Republicans come out, on the day of the election. And and then I just wasn't feeling that the community was behind it, Hispanic or otherwise. I just wasn't feeling that. And then no matter what was said in the news, because I just feel that it's not as a community, the truth isn't mattering. No matter what you say, folks are not seeing the real that's going down. It's all about, the pockets, so everyone's focused on, what's going on in my pocket, but not what the cost of making these decisions on the long term is going to bring our community. And that's where the apathy comes in. That's where it's what's in it for me. And then the other piece is nothing's going to happen for me. So why should I go out there and vote? The numbers that 67% of women didn't vote, I can imagine what those numbers are, for the men's side because of the apathy. It doesn't matter if I vote. And we haven't been able to really change that mentality that your vote does matter and your vote does count, regardless of whether you're black, Hispanic, or, non-white, non-Hispanic white. Your vote does matter, and we need to get that message across. And to Mario's point, we all, across the board, we have to do a better job in making sure that that message does get across.
Thank you, Victor. And Judy, what about you? What were your initial reactions to the election results?
Well, you don't want to know my initial reaction. I'll just tell you what I have been trying to think about since then. Obviously, extreme disappointment, but not unexpected, I guess would be my reaction. And it um, forced me to contemplate on what are the issues like Mario and Victor were talking about that relate to the low turnout, the apathy, or the vote for Trump. What are the things that drive that? Um, and I think it's several things. One of them is, and looking at some of the data across the board, you're right, that issue about finances was one, and really thinking more about individual rather than conceptually the broader picture of what democracy is about. Um, and so I go back to, is it about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and are we addressing that appropriately so that people know that these big issues are important to them too. Um, and the other thing too is about values. That was my reaction. And part of what drove me to that is, as it probably has occurred with all of you at some point, is realizing that this whole thing has created dissension among families, mine included. And how do you go about, I believe in tolerance, but how do you go about creating that line between tolerance and unacceptance of certain values? It's a really difficult thing. And I've had strong thoughts about that because it has been so challenging in my family in terms of the different values. And and you're right, Victor. For some it's pocket, but I keep trying to bite my tongue and not say, so for 2 pennies less on eggs, you've given up your daughter's freedom and rights.
Whoa.
It's like
All right.
I can't fathom that, but I'm trying to learn to be tolerant and think of ways to approach it other than facts. Because one thing that I've realized is that talking to people who think differently than you, facts don't matter. They
Nope,
don't matter.
not
So,
at all.
what is the approach that we're going to use, like you're talking about, Mario, to reach out to people and help them understand that these things matter to them, and also that, as you're mentioning, bring out the vote. You've got to vote. I suspect that with some Puerto Ricans in the state who were perhaps leaning toward Trump, that garbage comment helped kind of change them a little bit, but it was too little, too late. Um, and so how do we approach some of these things in the future? And the other thing is looking at some of the data that young Latino men and African American men voted more for Trump now than they did in the past. What is it that's driving them to think about it? Again, is it certain values about what they think masculinity is and what they think power is and how you wield it and how you use it? And how do we address that? Because that's important. You're looking at growing populations. These are going to be bigger numbers in the future. And if we don't figure that out, it's going to continue to be a losing battle.
So, Ms. Rodriguez, when you say if we don't figure it out, and I agree with you, it's going to be a losing battle. What are your thoughts on what's next? How do we figure that out? Where we go?
I don't know. I think part of it is trying to understand what do young men think are the behaviors that are appropriate for a male, because is it that machismo or that sort of behavior that they think is admirable? Did they think that one person was strong and the other one was weak because of the way they behaved? How can we go about helping that? And I actually saw some posts from females that said, we're not ready for a female president. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so men have done such a wonderful job that you're not willing to give a female a chance, an opportunity? What, and it goes across genders. So I think we need to do more research on the values that drive people to vote or accept certain kinds of behaviors. Because again, if you look at it, a lot of it are very religious people. And yet, and so I think, and sometimes it's a one issue thing. I saw with some, it was a one issue thing. I mean, it could be the devil with a flaming tail, fire coming out of his horns. And if he says he's anti-abortion, they're going to vote for him. It's that one issue at the expense of all others. So
what you're saying is that if I had to have any level of summarization of what you're saying is that at least we have to find out what's going on. I mean, what people thought like that, and we need dialogue in order to be able to do that. Correct? We can't change their mind without knowing where their minds are.
Exactly.
So
another one issue thing is, I know one person who would absolutely not vote for Democrats, even though traditionally was a Democrat, because he's anti-transgender surgery. That was it.
Yeah, I agree. I've got that too, Judy, that people had one thing, and that one thing is why they chose not to vote for VP Harris. Tyrone, can you put that comment back up on the screen that someone said?
Even our first one is good too. The first comment
is what some are thinking but won't say themselves. And you're right. We have to Florida message incorporated with a national message. I guess we have to have a So let me tell you something. Anyway, I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to give my opinion or thoughts about it. But did the outcome align with what you or the community expected? I know you kind of talked about, how you were feeling. And by the way, to the audience that are listening, I have I have a history of working with the Hispanic community here in Jacksonville, and we've grown to know each other and become friends. So I have to say that I've had this conversation with multiple people, and I found people, as all of you have said, who have felt one way or the other. And Mario, I have to go to you. What's Thanksgiving going to look like if you have family members who, are we going to be able to get along? And can you give us some advice from the licensed mental health counselor point of view? Get along and not cause a fight, and in terms of keeping politics off the table with the turkey.
Yes. I mean, I guess it's from a mental health perspective. Um, you know, we all know, we all have friends, we all know those people who we need to come back to the basics, and maybe this is kind of leading back to what Dr. Kane's question is and what Judy was trying to express, but realizing that there's more to us than what happens in the ballot box. And it's easier to set aside political differences, I think, when you're with that family member, when you're with and bringing it back to what really matters to people. What the sweet potato pie tastes like, and the recipe that grandma passed down, and just bringing it back to things that are really important about the family, and making light of what happened, and say, we're all still a community. We still have to learn to get along. And what happens, we can talk about all day what we think is going to happen and on the federal level, but I don't think anything that we can do right here at this dinner table is really going to make a difference of what um, you know Trump or any of the other elected officials in Washington can do. What we can do is engage our friends and family to see what we can do on a local level, supporting our mayor, supporting our city council, our school board, and seeing what we can do on a local level. And if we want to take it to Congress, we can start trying to flip the different seats that are coming up. If we want to start talking that way. But as far as the dinner table, the best thing, I just try to keep it light, try to keep it on things that we all have in common. And if you have that troublemaker that wants to talk about things, and you can entertain him for a little while, and just boil it back down and say, I wish there was more that we could do about it, but right now, I'm just glad that y'all are here, and then we can enjoy this time together with our family.
Yeah,
And and then they look foolish if they keep at it,
yeah.
um,
Troublemaker. That sounds like what they used to call me, troublemaker, when I raised
Yeah, sound like
Jersey.
me. I
Yeah,
didn't like that one.
I don't believe it,
yeah.
Dr. King.
And I think it's easy to say, you know what? Even though we disagree, I still love you. And
Yeah.
leave it at
Super
that.
simple.
Let's go back
Yeah.
to enjoying our dinner.
I also think it's important that you keep track and keep note and educate as we go. So I have a plan. I have my notebook, and when things happen to those so-called troublemakers, I have them on speed dial. I'm calling them up. So see, this is what happened. You, I'm not going to be confrontational. I'm just going to say, I just need you to understand that your vote is a part of why this is happening.
Well, I think you're gonna be pretty busy. You've been busy since it happened, and you're going to continue to be busy because I'm looking at his picks so far in terms of his cabinet, and it's like it's mind-boggling. That Dr. Oz is going to give me my national physician message for behavior, and what I can do for my patient. Dr. Oz, of all people, really? But I digress.
Well, my phone number is liable to be blocked before he actually gets in office at this rate.
So I think about policies though. Policies. What policies or platforms discussed during the election resonated most with Hispanic communities? I know you talked about the 2 cents you save on eggs, but in terms of policies though, and what resonated most during the election with
Well,
the Hispanic
let
community?
me tag on to that. So I've had some of my uh, and forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, Latinos, Hispanics. I've had some of them, my acquaintances say that the border crisis was what drove their vote, and that they're in favor of sending home all immigrants.
Undocumented though.
Undocumented is what they say, but that's not what
Right.
Stephen Miller says. Stephen Miller is of a different mindset, and that's
Yeah, I
my
understand.
problem there. I mean, even I don't even weigh in on the undocumented part as much as I'm weighing in on the potential issues that it can cause, even those who have become naturalized citizens, did everything correctly. And did any of your friends within your family and community, did any of them think about what role that may play in terms of them being able to stay here or whatever it may mean to them?
Yeah, but the way you started that, because I did the same thing, talking to friends and acquaintances, and they were all of the opinion because they were in good standing, because they were. I actually had one that said that they had their green card and their everything was in order. They felt no issue, no concern. But
Can
Well,
we stop that?
go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
go ahead.
Well,
go
I
ahead,
think
Ms.
it was more than no concern, because it sounds like what Dr. Kane is saying is not only did they not show concern, they showed concern by voting for the party that was reinforcing discrimination towards people that look like them, that had the same values as them. They were voting against their own self-interests because the Republican Party does have a way of having this us and them kind of mentality, and so they want to be with us. They don't want to be part of them. And even though they'll never be part of us, they can at least have that split second when they vote of feeling like they're part of something that is the real American way. And there's so many other things that I can go on and on about. And there's self-hatred. You know, self-hatred exists among a lot of minorities in the
We
United
know.
States. Always questioning what people are thinking when you walk into the room, always feeling like you're being sized up, always trying to feel like you're trying to figure out who you are, asking you where you're from. And it doesn't matter where you tell them. You can tell them you're from California. You can tell them over and over again, and they keep asking you, where are you from? And it's like, I already told you where I'm from. They want to hear that you are not like them, and they want to know that. And so this is the part where the minority wants to be a part of, and if it means having to hate who they used to be so they can feel part. And it happens a lot. It happened with the Italians, it happens with the Irish, it happens with the Germans. They were taught to hate by the last immigrant that was there. And all those feelings of hate that they had all those years, now they are in this position with that they're, maybe their grandmother spoke with an accent like Donald Trump's did, or or came over from Germany recently, in the last generation. They weren't part of the pilgrims, but they want to be a part of that, and so they think that by doing that, that a real American has to talk down everybody else. But that's not the truth. The true American is always the welcoming, wanting them. And in fact, all this is just ruining the economy, to tell you the truth, because the whole immigrant pattern is how America got so great. Unfortunately, on the backs of immigrants is how America became what it was, because it was people willing to live a substandard lifestyle to make it to that dream. And now they got rid of all the people who are willing to take a hit for the team so they can make their dream. And now all they have left is a lot of folks who feel entitled to have the American dream, and they all want to get paid $25 an hour.
Well,
That's not going to
yeah,
happen.
that's
not
America
what
gonna
was
I,
happen.
also built on the back of people that were not volunteering to build America. But
Exactly.
that's another subject now. Ms.
That's true.
Rodriguez, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of what I think Haroon is mentioning is part of it will be when they start to see the consequences of their vote. Because in fact, if you do have mass deportation, pretty much every Latino will somehow be affected because it's likely that they have somebody who will be deported, either correctly or incorrectly,
Incorrectly.
erroneously. So that's going to do it. The other thing is, I always like to say, I'm sorry, but who's going to build your homes, pick your broccoli, clean your houses, take care of your kids, and who's going to be around to do that? And when you have to pay $10 for a head of broccoli, you're going to really wish these people were back. So it will have a consequence. And you're right. That's when you pick up the phone, like you were saying, and say, oh, but I thought you said it was going to be better.
Ms. Turner, that I think I might have redirected your question, not by intent, but it just I couldn't hold it.
Well, I kind of want to move it based on the discussion by asking Judy. Judy, you just kind of talked about it, but are there any particular potential challenges or barriers the community should prepare for in the coming years?
I'm sorry, were you asking me,
Yeah.
Jocelyn? Yeah, I think there are a lot of, one of them is the issue of
Grow
like
your
the
own
DACA.
broccoli? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the yeah, the prices on foods and and that's the other one. Try to teach people, see, there is a relationship between the price on food and the mass deportations, okay? About the prices of your homes, about how you have people available now to do all this kind of work for you. We got to make that direct link, and we haven't done that well enough. The other thing is that's making, I'm into education. This whole thing with the DACA, will probably see DACA eliminated. It had been scaled back. It's going to be eliminated. And I was looking at it, that could affect 400,000 students. When you think of the investment in education to prepare these people who are now in college, who could be significant contributors to the national economy, to our local community, to be role models to other Latino children, and we're going to send them back? What a waste of our money and our resources. So I think, yeah, all these policies, we have to keep saying this is how it's going to impact. I'm really worried about
that's going to impact small colleges as well.
Yes.
You can't get rid of 400,000 students and expect every college to still survive. So we're going to have fewer colleges.
Not to mention the work in college, but go ahead.
Well,
Even locally here, I mean, even locally here, we have, some of our small colleges that are housing Hispanic students, are going to be affected. And to Judy's point and Mario's point, when they cast that net out, they're not going to screen out for, oh, let me see if you have your papers. Everybody's going to be taken in, and then they're going to shake out the strainer. So we're all going to be affected in one shape or form because Ms. Gibson wants us to explain DACA. Judy, I'll pass that to you. I think that's what I see in the chat. Yes. Please explain DACA. So, but to the point is that whole tsunami of if they're not sure, you're going to be, you're probably going to be taken in and have to go through the process of explaining and the stress and who knows, lawyer fees and all this other good stuff associated with trying to prove that you are who you are, whether you are documented or not. And that's it's going to affect your bosses at work, your family, everyone, and that's going to be a whole effect that we're going to see. The tsunami is going to start now, but it's going to affect us throughout the years and maybe even past this administration.
Yeah.
So there's an explanation for DACA. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judy, if you were going to discuss that.
Well, DACA is what they call the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So let's say your parents were undocumented and you came with them as a child, and now you've lived your whole life in the United States, but technically you're illegal because you weren't born in the United States, you haven't had the opportunity to be naturalized. There was something put in place. I think it was an executive order. And basically what it said is that you had a time frame under which you could apply to go through a legal process to become a citizen. And then under Trump, that was actually rescinded. But then it's been used, it's come back, but now what we're thinking is that it'll probably be totally eliminated, probably through an executive order, so that people won't be able to use that mechanism. And I can think of one student that I had who got a bachelor's and 2 masters at the university. He had been my student. He wasn't able to go through DACA. He ended up having to go back to South America. Now, what a waste. We had a person, he even worked with me once on a research project, was an excellent person. Now, he's gone. We invested all this money in him, and
He
he
paid
couldn't
out
go
of state
to DACA.
cash for that. They
Yeah.
pay cash. They get no financing, and that goes straight into the university's pocket.
Yeah.
They don't have to give them, they don't give them in-state fees or any of that. So financially, but I think it was Victor who was saying, and Judy, we get affected. Not only are they going to be affecting our family by having people deported, affecting the economy that way, but emotionally,
Yeah.
even citizens who are now on the menu as far as being Hispanic, hearing about how fellow Hispanics are being deported. So now you're a second class citizen. Doesn't matter if you're a citizen, because like I said, they're always trying to figure out who you are. And it's an emotional tax. It was the most taxing time, at least in my life, living in the United States during the 4 years that Trump was in office. I'm sure it was for many of people in the show as well. When my son was 11 years old, he's 18 now. He was on a soccer team, and one of his little friends that he thought was a friend on his team, overheard him talking about how, Trump could, shouldn't be elected, how he should have, all the stuff he talks about, the way he's treating Hispanics and this and that. And he was talking with a friend of his, who was Filipino background, and they were agreeing on things. And the other kid jumps in and goes, "Well, you better stop talking or you're going to get deported too."
Mm.
To my son. And he used to proudly wear his Mexican jersey from the Mexican national team, to his soccer practice all the time. So everybody knew that he was, Hispanic, and so it affects everyone, whether or not you're a citizen or not. And that's why it was such a short-sighted view of these immigrants, whether you came in the right way or not. It's a slippery slope, and the price that you pay is way more than those 2 cents you're getting back on that dozen eggs.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, so it's created this atmosphere too, where many of the non-Hispanics assume that if you're Hispanic, you must be undocumented, or that you somehow got here through illegal means in some way. And I was looking at some data, and the majority of Latinos in the United States, 67%, are native born and 13% are naturalized. That means that 80% of Latinos are actually legal citizens. And then from that other 20%, you've got people with green cards or on work visas. So, it's created, and that's part of, I think, what caught on and got some people to vote in a way that would displease me, is that whole image that was created about illegality of certain groups,
Yeah.
when it's such a major fallacy.
When you
80%.
when you look at some of the what you just described in terms of who voted for what, and the potential that 15 to 20 million is the numbers circulating around right now, that he's going to call out the National Guard, well, not National Guard, I'm sorry, the U.S. Army, actually, the military, call out the military by which to help mass deport people. And I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a very aggressive deporting program. Did you think some of those Latinos that voted for that, did you think they realized what that meant for them, or I don't know, I'm dumbfounded.
Well, I think it's even unconstitutional to use the military against its own people.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're not supposed to.
that you're not supposed to, but Donald Trump has been given his little green card from the United States Supreme Court to be able to do
Whatever
what
you
he
want.
thinks is legal.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and I think about a conversation, Judy, as you were talking. And I don't remember the gentleman's name who is going to be over. Who the incoming president has charged with immigration. He said when the reporter asked him or told him where the children are citizens, and how do you think that is that you're deporting their parents but not them because they're American, they're citizens. And he said, "You're right. Families should stay together, so they all should leave, right?" And just how cold that seemed, when it was said. If you're just tuning in, we are talking about the road ahead, how the election shaped the future of the Hispanic community. Talking
Yeah.
about, we've asked our guests for personal perspectives, community impact. I'd like for us to move to civic engagement and ask a quick question. What role do you think Hispanic voters played in shaping the outcome? Because there was a lot of conversation on television how the Republican Party was doing a lot of outreach to the Hispanic community. So do you think, and Mario, you did a great job of sharing some data, but do you think that the Hispanic community or voters played a role in shaping the outcome?
Yeah, definitely. You know, um,
Although you gave a disappointing number the number of Hispanic women who did not vote. That was very disappointing to hear. And it's not just and I'm not picking on Hispanic women, but just to your point of mentioning that, I didn't realize it was that high. Was that a
yeah,
national number you were given or statewide?
that was Florida. That was in Florida.
67%, I think, is what you
Yep.
mentioned.
Yes, yes. I mean, I have some interesting data that was sent to me that I was just looking at the other day. Um, we saw Hispanics affect the vote in a positive way, like I said, in the swing states. We had, for example, Arizona, 63% went for Harris versus 636 for Trump. And we have to remember that Trump actually got 33 million votes less than he got last time. The problem is that Democrats had 14 million votes less
That's right.
than last time. So, it's not that he won, it's just that Harris didn't win. Harris didn't turn out.
So the turnout was really pretty bad for Democrats. Is what
Yes, yes. He can go on and on about how much he won, but he actually lost in comparison to how he did last time. And last time he lost an election. So he even has lower turnout. But, going on, California, well, we already know California is going to be a good turnout, but that's 66-33. Georgia, 64 versus 35% for Trump. Again, these are all Hispanic numbers. Michigan, 64. Nevada, 64% versus 35 to Trump. North Carolina, another state where we had great turnout. Pennsylvania, 70% versus 28 to Trump.
Are you saying that? Oh, okay. 28 for Trump. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
Wisconsin, 64, Harris, 28, 34 to Trump. These were.
Overwhelmingly 2-1, Hispanic votes
Right.
went for.
So yeah, Hispanic votes generally went towards, and at least in these states that I have here,
Of the people
except
that
for
voted.
Florida.
The key though, Mario,
Yeah.
of the people that voted, because there were a whole lot of people who didn't vote. I want to move real quick because we're running out of time to ask a quick question. How do you see the policies that have been tossed around relative to education, healthcare, and small business impacting the Hispanic community? Have you heard anything that you're concerned about that, folks talked about? They were very clear. We talked about immigration, but is there anything else that you've heard relative to education, healthcare, or small businesses that you think that the Hispanic community need to be concerned about that was said on the campaign trail?
Judy's on mute.
You're muted, Judy.
Once again, there you go.
I think Kristi Noem is the one who's been nominated for education. I'm worried about that because she has a lot of anti-LGBTQ positions and also anti-critical race theory, has limited education and what can be done in North Dakota. So there's going to be, if she's nominated and she goes through with some of the things she wants, there's going to be a lot of issues related to restricting knowledge, which is critical for people to know their history. And of course, you all know Kennedy and his issues with vaccine as a skeptic. That is, Latinos for children have a fairly good record, not as much for adults with vaccinations, but with children, good. And if that anti-vaccine campaign goes through and those numbers start to decrease, that could be very harmful for children. So yeah, that is worrying me. And who's the other one? I'm looking here. That, in terms of business too, this whole thing about tips, I mean, people think, oh, that's great. Yeah, but that also includes bonuses. So why do CEOs like it? Oh, because now they can get, tax-free on their $1 million bonuses. So there's just a lot, I think, there is to worry about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kristi Noem
Victor, you had something to add?
yeah, so I mean, it's a whole snowball effect because the whole narrative and the whole messaging of this, this new group of quote unquote leaders that we're going to have one message and one message only, and it's not about the people, it's about what's in it. To me, what's in it for them in the immediate moment and those that support them. So, immigration is one thing that's going to create a snowball effect, but then we also have education, health, commerce. So it's all going to come to a head at some point because there's going to be micro pockets of everyone being affected in different sectors at one time or another, Jocelyn. We know that immigration is a big deal, but health alone, we start now, not vaccinating our kids or moving in that direction. That's going to create a snowball effect of its own in the health community. And then folks are going to be looking for some sort of relief from that aspect of it. And then, what could happen in the business community. And let's not even start talking about the Justice Department, because that's another area that things are going to get really crazy.
Yeah, we have a sex trafficker
And say,
who's also
as the top, right?
There might be a plural. There may be more than just.
might be the only person that can make Trump look good.
Wow. So what actionable steps can the community take now to advocate for their needs and priorities?
Well, you can apply
Politics
for a
is local.
visa. You can apply for a visa to move to Canada. A lot of European countries are looking great right now. I'm only kidding. Just playing. No, that was a joke.
I mean, Mario made a very good point at when he first started talking. Politics is local. Support our local politicians, support the mandate that's here locally in
Yeah.
this 800, and 46 square miles of city that we call home, and support what's going on there because we can actually affect change, within our own little space, and then let it kind of flow out of there. But trying to deal with what's going on up at the hill, that's going to be an uphill battle. But I think that we need to support what's going on here and making sure that if we like what's happening in Jacksonville, we keep it in Jacksonville and not let it go away. I think 2 years from now. That to
What
me,
I
that's
go ahead. I'm sorry, Victor.
just if if we were, there's some things that are starting to move, things that are starting to happen. And I think if we like it, keep it. Let's not let it go awry. When it comes time to vote again. Make sure that what's happening in your community, that you like, we keep.
Well, I think the reason I was such a hurt to jump in. This most recent city council member meeting, our city council. One of our guests last week said we should get at least 10 members of the city council members, into the same mind frame that the rest of the party has, the Democratic Party has, to whatever degree, in uniformity. But one of the things that a lot of people, I don't know how many people realized last week, if I'm not mistaken, they voted for the Sons of Confederacy to return their monuments, put monuments in places that where we just made all these efforts to get rid of these Confederate monuments. Our city council voted unanimously, the ones that voted, to put those Sons of Confederacy monument back up. What it says, and the reason I'm saying that is because that it is, I feel is this big that we need to clean the slate. Let's get at least 10 council members that we can, from a local politics standpoint, because the next election will be local. And so while we're trying to build on our national election, some changes in our next national picture, first we start here locally, just like what you said, Victor and Mario and all all you guys on this podcast are saying. Let's go for local, and we make these changes one step at a time.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you talk about the issue about the Confederacy and the statues and stuff. I mean, sometimes we also don't think about what it represents and what it says nationally and internationally. I mean, how would we feel if Germany decided they want to start putting up statues of Hitler all around their country? That's what we're
all around our country. All around our country.
It's that's what we're saying, and we don't see the parallels here, and there are parallels there.
We talk often about engaging younger generations. How can younger generations of Hispanics be empowered to take on leadership roles? And are there any Hispanic individuals on the city council here in Jacksonville?
Yes.
Yes,
Person.
Raul. We have
yeah.
Raul and Ken. I consider Ken Hispanic.
Yeah,
But
Ken is.
yes, Ken.
Ken Amaro?
Ken is from Puerto Rico. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ken Amaro.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
think
have two.
I think the college is important. I have to tell you, I was kind of a little freaked when my college age nephew came to me to tell me that he had decided to vote third party. And we had to go through this whole discussion about the difference between an idealistic vote and a pragmatic vote. And boy, he's young, he's idealistic. I had to accept it, but I wanted to make sure I planted the seed about the difference and how it impacts the outcome. So those young people in colleges who are highly idealistic, and it's wonderful, we need to teach them to be pragmatists.
Yeah, that's same. A couple of my friends had that same conversation with their young adult children or relatives that they voted for the third party, and they tried to explain to them, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Yeah,
Bill,
now As far as that is concerned, I often see where we wait too late on that one. Because
Yes.
Mhm.
I know Miss Johnson and Dr. Kane know that that's a group that I stay engaged with, and the secret is consistency.
Yeah.
All right, so when it came to our group and our young kids, I involved the fathers and the mothers at the very beginning, and we started having gatherings, and we started talking, and we had them to talk through those decisions. And I will tell you that when one person their age gets it, their ability to explain it to those who don't get it far exceeds our ability. The words and the terms that they use
Mhm.
to help them understand are not the usual words that come from our older generation. But the key point was they got it. And then we created and organized a situation where we all went to vote on the same day. Okay. And so by incorporating that in from the very beginning helped to guide them down what we thought was the best path. Now, of course, you never know what they did when they got in there, but all things being equal, that's what we believe that they were able to see that pathway.
It's interesting, Tyrone, because I just got a text from someone that said this is more than just about an election, and that's the other thing, you know. And I think the conversation about local politics and not just vote for when it's the national election, but really being engaged locally all the time, not just when it's time to vote. And I know all of you, all of us have been engaged over the years, and Dr. Kane and Tyrone have pushed it at me, and I haven't been a willing participant, by the way, that, you know, we're getting older, Dr. Kane and I'm not going to put Tyrone in the conversation.
Oh,
We're really we're really ready for younger folks to take over and step up. You know, I remember Victor when he used to do events and things like that. Like, you know, at some point we all want to retire and just, you know, just take it easy, but we're concerned about the future of the very people that we're trying to get engaged.
our
So
kid.
we've got to figure out what it is other than the 2 cents that they serve that they could save on eggs, as was mentioned, and then also the issue of abortion or LGBTQ, if that one thing, because to share with all of you, when it comes to LGBTQ, I've had the conversation with people because I am pro-choice, and I had a conversation with someone because, yes, I went out to the courthouse and I was marching 40 years ago, and I went back a couple of years ago. And I asked a person who approached me because I had my sign pro-choice, asking me if I were a Christian. And I pushed back and asked her, has she adopted or fostered any of the children that she's saving? And she said, no, I would. No, I would if I could afford it. And I said, hey, that's a choice that you made, what was best for you. So why can't a woman choose what's best for her to keep her child or not? You don't know the circumstances surrounding her pregnancy. So again, what you said, Judy, earlier, that people have to be practical with things sometimes and think life is bigger than that one thing. There are a whole lot of things, excuse me, that I'm not in favor of. Like yesterday, somebody speeding down the road and almost hit the dog. Like, that was heartbreaking to me if they had hit that dog, and I'm blowing my horn. Like, so I there are things that I'm concerned about, but I'm not gonna, you know, pull out a gun and shoot the person for hitting the dog. You know what I mean? We have to be practical about stuff other than just saying slow down, please. There's a life in front of you that you're about to change, right? And so we just got to be able to be practical and have those conversations moving forward. Well, guess what, folks? We're at the end of the podcast, and at the end, we like to give our guests an opportunity. First of all, we want to thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas about this the topic. but we like to give each one of you an opportunity to share your final thoughts or perhaps anything that we didn't get a chance to discuss tonight. And I will also start with Judy and ask you, Judy, to share your final thoughts and anything else you'd like to add that we may not have discussed.
I think the only thing I want to add is I do believe that we need to work more with the younger population. They are the future. They're the ones who are going to inherit this world. We have not done a very good job, and we need to give them the inspiration and the knowledge and skills to believe that they can do a better job. They are my hope.
Spoken like a true educator. Thank you, Judy. Victor, what about you? What are your final thoughts?
I actually need to piggyback on what Judy was saying because I think we need to do a better job not only to guide our youth, but because we're of a certain age, we think that our youth don't really kind of know what they want. We need to listen to them and be able to be available to be able to understand what their vision is, what they see, because um the younger generation today is a lot smarter than when I was their age. So I think it's important that we accept the fact that they do think on their own and that they have their own voice, and we need to support that as much as possible as the leaders that we say we are. So that was thank you.
We'll get an amen from the church with Dr. Kane and Tyrone because they've been saying that all along. Mario, how about you? What are your final thoughts regarding tonight's topic?
Well, we have to remember that half the people voted, but half the people did not vote for Trump. And we have to remember that there is a very large group of people in this country that believe that Kamala Harris should have been president and that our country should be run in a different way. And we have to learn how to bring those 70 million people that decided not to show up and inspire them, to be not 70 million, 14 million, and bring those people out of whatever darkness that they're in and that loss of hope that they're in, and bring people back into feeling hope again, that there will be a change. Because when you stay home, you're telling folks that you don't think your vote matters. And we have a lot of great inspirational leaders in this country, and we have to stop being our own worst enemies and coming out and supporting those people that want to do good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Mara.
Tyrone, since you stayed from behind the camera this time and stayed on camera, would you like to share your final thoughts regarding tonight's topic?
Yes, yes. Thanks. First of all, to our guests, it was great to hear your ideas, your thoughts. It is also good to have some of the things that Dr. Kane and I say often echoed by you guys. Dr. Kane, we're right. So, but the thing that I want to kind of tap into that was only slightly talked about is that the concept of how we persuade someone to our side has to change. When you look at our system, and our system is one, and I've said this before, where we undereducate and do not educate our youth. But when it comes time to vote, we want to talk to them about terms that they have no concept of. We preach throughout this here thing democracy. Well, civics is in most schools has been gone for a while. They don't understand what democracy is. Our counterparts, what they preach was fear, an understanding of what would happen if this happened. They spoke to the person's fear. So I am a firm believer that we need to speak to the people where they are, the youth, the undereducated, the overeducated. Everyone needs to be spoken to in a manner that resonates. It's a reason why the newspaper was written at the sixth grade level, because of the mass reach that it had. It wanted to assure that everyone who got it could get it and understand it. And we have to learn from those lessons. If what happened in this election did not prove anything, it did prove that concepts don't work. It did prove that a plan is not important. A concept of a plan is a better idea than an actual plan. So you can say what you want, but the facts say for themselves. So we have to be a part of the education. We got to get good quality people in place, and we've talked about that for locally, but we have to sell what we're offering in a manner that people are willing to buy.
Thank you, Tyrone. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts?
I'd like to concur with everyone here. Thank you guys for coming onto our podcast. We appreciate the input and the value the value that you have added to this discussion in terms of what do we do next, in terms of presenting what the populace probably really want, the general population really want, instead of just a certain sect of people. I will defer from what Tyrone said in terms of being able to, when we're looking at having people step forward to let me put it this way. There are a number of issues that occurred with this previous election. One of the most prevalent things is that we did not go out and listen to our youth to find out where their minds were at and what we needed to do in order to meet them. And because they are the future, is what Tyrone said earlier. They are the future. And they're the ones that got to live in this world. And I've said it to my colleagues and others that, if I go by the average lifespan of the average black male is, I got another 10 years left at best. My kids got 40 and 50 years left. And I most certainly want them to be able to at least get to the age that I am right now. And so they're the ones that have to help make decisions about their future. And one of the things that we have not done is listen to them, find out what they think, and try to meet them where it matters. We do need to make sure, and we do need to be able to offer them some advice and some insight as to our experience throughout life so that they can learn from it. But they are experiencing their own lives, and we need to respect that and hear from them as to what they think is important. And to that fact, to that degree, I want to make sure that we got one last segment to this trifecta that we were looking at in terms of post-election issues, and that's next week. We really want to bring on. Our intent is to bring on the young folks, and let's hear from them. Let them bring their ideas in. Let us hear from them as to what's next. And I agree with a lot of our audience, whom the listeners and viewers who have chimed in this evening, and they talked about things from healthcare. I didn't even get into that in terms of my fear of what's going to happen with this healthcare situation in this country. But also, I agree with them in terms of making sure that our youth are able to chime in, because they were part of that millions that did not vote. There was a significant amount of them that did not come out and vote. So if we can listen to our youth, and please join us next week. Ms. Turner, I know you're going to go through, join us next week for our next topic. But next week, we do plan on bringing the youth, and that's the finals, at least in terms of the segmental trifecta that we're looking at. Hearing from them is what we really need to help close this out, as far as the trying to figure out what happened during the election. After that, it's moving forward and trying to figure out what to do next.
Thank you, Dr. Kane, and thank you to our guests. Thank you to our audience for joining us on this important episode of Pause for the Truth. Today's conversation has shed light on the ways the recent election will shape the future of the Hispanic community, from policies to representation and beyond. We want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guests for sharing their insights and experiences. Your voices are a reminder of the power of community advocacy and staying engaged in the democratic process. As we look ahead, let's remember that the work doesn't stop at the ballot box. It continues in our neighborhoods, our schools, and our places of work. Together, we have the power to shape a future where the Hispanic community thrives and is heard. To our listeners, we encourage you to stay informed, get involved, and support the initiatives that matter most to you and your community. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others and don't forget to subscribe to Pause for the Truth so that we can continue to stay on the air and have more conversations about what really matters. To those of you who heard Dr. Kane's plea, please join us next week as we have our next conversation regarding the election, this time with younger adults. We'd like to hear their perspective, not to imply that our guests are old, but to younger adults to hear their perspective about the election and what their thoughts and feelings are as and concerns if they have any regarding the outcome of the election. Thank you as always to our audience for tuning in, and to our guests, don't log off when we end the show. Good evening.
And there we have it, another episode of the Pause for the Truth podcast in the proverbial books. Our heartfelt thanks go out to every one of you who took the time to tune in. Mark your calendars, we're here every Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to join our community on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the golden ticket? Subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's your passport to all our latest episodes and exclusive content. A special mention to the wizard behind the curtain, Tyrone Jackson from Call Tyrone IT Services. His technical prowess and unwavering dedication are the backbone of this podcast. Next week, we'll be back with more. Until then, tell your friends, tell your family about our show. Your support